Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 147 of the Noclip podcast, a very special edition, as today we are here to talk about one game and one game only, Fallout New Vegas. Joining me today are three of the most beautiful smooth skins I've ever had the opportunity of being on a podcast with. First of all, returning favorite, Jesse Garasha. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing well. Patrolling the Mojave makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy Jane, how do you feel about blowing up bombs and shooting rad scorpions?
I'm so excited to tell you guys all about Tits Nelson, my cowboy, who I've been role-playing as for a few weeks now.
Terrific. Frank Howley, did you name your character after a certain lady rocker?
Yeah, I did make Haley Williams and Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah.
Terrific. We have a lot to talk about today. I'm not really sure what we're going to talk about because we've all kept our mouths shut between ourselves about our experience playing Fallout New Vegas over the past few weeks. But before we get to that, massive shout out to all of these beautiful ghouls, Battle Royale games, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Jason Drury, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Hooster, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, Darren Birmingham, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Ladd, Alex Sharp, Alex Goucher, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, James Andrew Adams, Tohir Tiliev, and of course, Ryson. We love you all. Okay, Fallout New Vegas. If ever there was a game that was going to be a fun time for all concerned to go back and play, it was this seminal release, October 19th, 2010. It is almost 13 years old, which is rather depressing. But you could argue, I don't know, it depends, I guess, where you come in on this, but for some, Obsidian's highest watermark, which, considering this was a game that was sort of built off of Fallout 3, obviously there's a lot of history here with Black Isle and the original Fallout games with Leonard Boyarsky and Tim Kaine at Obsidian at certain points, with them getting this game out and actually being kind of a buggy mess when it launched. I remember it was a lot of feedback on that. And some of that is to do with all of the amazing additions that they made to this game that were not in Fallout 3, factions and whatnot, which I'm sure we'll get into today. But let's start off, I guess, with just general vibes on our time at Fallout New Vegas, and I guess how much time each of us, maybe not how much time, but what we did, what our progress was, or how we played over the past couple of weeks. Jesse, let's go with you first. I'm eager to chat to you because we don't get to very often. What's been your time with Fallout? And did you, I guess also let's talk about your priors with New Vegas. Did you play it much when you were younger?
Actually, it's I had a buddy in high school, Brandon Liu, shout outs. He's somewhere out there living his life.
What up, Brandon?
And he would always loan me video games. He gave me Demon's Souls on the PS3, so I guess he hated me a little bit. And then he gave me Fallout New Vegas. And I remember playing the first 10 hours of it and saying, this sucks. Why am I playing this? This is so ugly. I could be playing anything else. Give me Final Fantasy 13, the greatest game ever made. I'd rather play that. And I never came back to it. And then, I don't know, I got a computer that was pretty decent. Played it, and as per Steam, before this current playthrough, I had 120 hours in Fallout New Vegas.
Oh, right.
Did not realize that I had actually beaten it 3 times somehow over the last 6-7 years. And then this playthrough, I spent about 13 hours going from start to finish, which was really quick.
Oh, wow.
I had never actually finished it that fast before. PB, by the way.
Nice.
I went for I'm excited to hear everyone else's playthroughs, by the way, and how you approached it and everything. But because this is my 4th playthrough, I was like, you know what? And I've been making a concerted effort to do this as well in all RPGs. I'm just going to be an ass. I'm not trying to be the nice guy. I'm not trying to be Mother Teresa. I want to be a little bad guy, a little bad boy. So I joined Caesar's Legion as soon as humanly possible and decimated all of the groups in New Vegas. And I showed them all who's the boss. It's me and my boy Kaisar.
Got your crucifixion stats up real high, did you?
Oh, buddy. Who's the guy from Friends that's in this game? What's the...
Oh, Matt Perry was...
Matthew Perry, he's up
gamer.
there.
Yeah, he got I forget how this happened. There was some interview he did where he was talking about how much he was playing. It might have been Fallout, it might have been Oblivion or something. And he was talking about how much, this is probably during his Coke days when he was at Friends. And then, yeah, so it was known that he was a gamer. And then I think they reached out to him about it. Yeah, so wild. I mean, he's not in it that much, but like he is basically the antagonist of the game, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you eventually hunt him down, and yeah, he's up on a cross now, along with the rest of the people who stood against Caesar and his legion, Alwe and Vole, or whatever they say, Volare.
A couple of people who looked at you wrong. The Kaiser thing freaked me out for a while. Apparently, it is closer to the classical pronunciation. Because of the way, I guess, Latin works, is that they don't do the s with the Caesar, with the AE following it. So
that's interesting. I thought it was a situation of like people in the future didn't know how to say it, so everyone just said it wrong.
I thought that too, and when I played it when I was first like back on the Xbox 360 or whatever, I assumed the same, but I googled it this time because I was like, I need to figure this out. Yeah, and apparently it's just a little bit closer to it. So who knew? The folks of the Mojave Wasteland had a better idea of the classics than we do, despite the fact that 99% of the books in this world are ruined. Yep. Jeremy, what about you? Tits, what's his name? Tits McGee? No, that's Anchorman. Tits what is
Nelson.
It? Tits Nelson. Tell
Tits
me about
Nelson's
the
my name.
adventures of Tits Nelson. You gonna do the voice the whole podcast?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a Sam Elliott impression for the whole podcast. Tits Nelson is the dude bad. So Tits Nelson is a dynamite obsessed cowboy. Sort of an agent of chaos, not really a virtuous person, though, like benevolent, but not a good boy. So I have a confession to make. I thought I had played this game before, and I definitely have I have interacted with. I've been in the world of Fallout New Vegas, but I had this false memory of I played Fallout 3 like in college and loved it. So I immediately was like, I need to play New Vegas when it came out, and I think I definitely didn't own it on Steam before this last month. So I must have had it on a console. Maybe one of my college roommates had it or something.
360 was maybe the lead platform for this one.
Yeah.
When it first came out.
I think one of my roommates had it. And so I had this memory of firing up the game and beelining for the strip. And I have this memory of going to the top of a tower and talking to a powerful man. And that was it. And having replayed the game now, start to finish, there's no way that's possible. There's no way I went to the strip, level 1, did all the requisite quests to get up to the top,
to Mr.
and then
House
Mr. House, and misremembered Mr. House as a human. So I have no idea what was going on with my brain. No, but I didn't. I know.
Yeah.
But
you couldn't have done that immediately.
Yeah. Yes, exactly, because I didn't beat the game. So I just had this false memory of a guy sitting at a desk up there, which I don't know.
Had you watched your friend playing? Maybe
I don't know. It must have been because one of my friends suggested maybe I watched the H-bomb video on it, which I have not.
I was just gonna say you watched that in your sleep and it just became your own experience.
I don't know.
I've not watched that one yet either, actually. Somehow.
Yeah, I will now. But anyway, so this was kind of the first time I played New Vegas. So I would say for the first 5 hours, I was like, I don't really remember this. And then after that, I was like, okay, no, I don't. I haven't seen any of this. This
awesome.
is all new. So this was kind of my first playthrough. And this game is unbelievable. I loved this game so fucking much. It's rocketed up into my all-time top 10. It is so much fun.
It's a Jeremy Jane-ass game. I'm shocked you haven't played it.
Yeah, it's so fun, dude. And it's also I've been working on a game that is so narratively driven, and to have such large tracts of this game where it's just fun to go around talk to a guy, and the writing is so good, and he's like, you gotta go talk to the other guy, and I'm like, I can't wait to talk to the other guy. I just I don't know. I sometimes feel like games need to service my desire for more mechanical interaction more. And so in my head, this was a game where I'm like, okay, talk to 2 people and then go shoot a ton of stuff and get cool guns and then come back and talk to a few people. But the parts of this game where you're just talking to people are so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
it's probably, it may be best in class, which is, I think, a point of some ire or contention, because that is a very BGS versus Obsidian situation. But the writing jobs in New Vegas are you John Gonzalez, who we interviewed back when we did the Horizon Zero Dawn documentary. He was on this team. It's a real strong part of this game. Frank, how about you? How did Hayley Williams do on her adventure across the Mojave Wasteland?
This was great. My whole experience getting back into Fallout New Vegas started because this year, before the fall, now we have so many games to play, but this year was a lot of me tackling like old relics from my backlog. Like I finally beat Breath of the Wild, I finally cleared Lost Judgment, and I was going through like my Xbox achievement history and thinking of like what are games I never finished. Fallout New Vegas was a game I started in like 2010, right when it came out. I was in college, I gameflied it, and then like 2 weeks later, midterms were happening or finals, and it's like, oh, I don't have time to get lost in an RPG. I sent it back, and I never returned to it. And I had the reason I dropped it is I had choice paralysis near the end of the game where you have to like speak to Mr. House, and you basically have to pitch which faction. And I was like, I don't know. I freaked out and I put the game down. And then this summer I was looking for a game to play, and I was like, oh wait, Fallout New Vegas, that's a summary game. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Started playing it, and like I talked about, I streamed it, and all of a sudden, like that's now 13 years later, I had so many friends come in and tell me their stories and tell me the best stats, the best builds, the best tricks. So I made a new character because I thought originally the idea was like, oh, let me load up my old Xbox 360 save and do 2 hours and beat the game. It got lost in some cloud or some Xbox, and I never found it.
There was never any clouds, so it's just sitting on your old Xbox somewhere.
Yeah, and I was doing it on backwards compatible on Series X. So I went to Book Off and I got like the Ultimate Edition for like $10, which is all the DLC. The Game Pass version doesn't have the DLC. So yeah, I made again my current whatever I'm currently obsessed with, I will make in a video game. So this was the summer of Paramore. I saw Paramore in Palm Springs in the desert. So I thought like, oh my God, this is perfect pairing.
Almost made it into the map. You're not too far. Yeah.
I think New Vegas was like the next stop on the Paramore tour.
Highway 15, I think, goes right through there though, right? So you're you're on the way.
So I made Haley Williams, which is great because like one of the things I love in this game is like I feel like what's the term in Souls games where people will do like just cosmetic runs? Where fashion souls, I think they call it.
So it's a Warframe thing called fashion framing, and I think maybe people did a Souls version of it, but yeah.
So that's what I started playing. It's like, oh my God, I'm finding all these cute sundresses for my character. I'm finding cute hats and stuff. Like I was complete. Like it wasn't until the second half of the game when you're dealing with like the giant dudes in machine suits and stuff, where it's like, oh wait, let me put on armor and use the machine suits. But I was just doing sundresses and stuff in the desert. I played the most of this in third person, which I don't know how other people played it, but to me it was like, oh, it's so fun running around as this girl just shooting people and like. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it. So my goal with this was like kind of an achievement cleanup. So I wanted to beat the game. I wanted to do side stuff. One thing I focused on was like there's a bunch of weapon achievements, like get 10,000 weapon damage in guns, get 10,000 weapon damage in energy weapons, 10,000 in explosives. So I would kind of like spec into a gun, get the achievement, go down the next thing, and like that ticks so many brains. So my goal was do all the side stuff. I think I had about 23 hours before I ever got to the strip in New Vegas.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's awesome.
Nice. I had played some of this back in, it was right after you had mentioned it. I had a couple of nights where I played a bunch of it back in July or June or something like that. And so for this, I was thinking, okay, a lot of you guys are probably going to play a lot of it. So I'm going to try and like get a different angle on this, especially if there's going to be four of us. So the two things I decided to do were, one, I played it on Steam Deck because I wanted to see how does that, like, is it a good fit? Because most old games really aren't, and it's not been like updated or anything. And the second thing I did was, in the years since, obviously, I've moved to America. I was in Ireland when I played this originally. And I've since spent, especially since COVID and starting doing the off-roading, I've spent like way more time in the Mojave in general. Obviously, we camped out in the actual national park for the Black Mesa stuff, right? But I've also like done, like Mojave is kind of like a term that is used for like a lot of that area that's below the Colorado Peninsula. So like Death Valley is part of the sort of Mojave Desert. Like Vegas is in the Mojave Desert. The Mojave National Park is in it. I think they also say that Joshua Tree is technically, is that in the Mojave?
I'm not sure what the confines are actually.
Maybe, I forget. But it's kind of like this general big, and it stretches up into Nevada as well. And it's essentially, just a high desert, which is something that, like, I remember, Jeremy, you sort of like telling me all about this because you camped out there for years and gone on, trips out there and brought the RV out there and done all that sort of stuff. And I'd never been I didn't really understand the concept of what a high desert was, like a desert that is basically at like such an altitude that that it just has, I guess, different characteristics in terms of the erosion and deposition that's happened there, in terms of the plant life and animal life that lives there. And I have, like, over the past few years, completely fallen in love with the high desert. We were driving back from a trip further north than that recently, and I ended up going through a bunch more of that stuff that I'd never seen before. Not the Mojave, but just kind of further up north near Oregon. And it's just like, I get why you would set a game here. Like, there is a mythos to these places, because when you go to like Death Valley, or you go to any of the areas like south or west of Vegas, there's so much history, because there's so much, like, there's ghost towns everywhere. There's old mining towns that were there for a while and got abandoned. I follow, I'm not sure if I mentioned on this podcast, but there's the YouTube channel of the guy who owns that ghost town called Cerro Gordo, that's up on the just on the other side of the Sierras, basically on the, I think it's on the Panamint Range, so like west of Death Valley, where he's been for years, since COVID. I've been following this channel where he's basically trying to like do up this ghost town. And it's just, the history you get is this type of Weird West, right? It's this weird, like, funky stories of like prospectors or people turning up somewhere, or like weird, like people trying to make these like oases in the desert, or it's like Manson driving the school bus up. Like I've been to the town that where he was holed out, and all that sort of shit is 100% like the vibe and the storytelling in Fallout New Vegas. So what I wanted to do was, I just wanted to like explore. I was like, okay, I'm going to treat this game like the way I played Warcraft or the way I play modern open world games, where I just get lost and I try and like figure out if you're able to get lost. It's actually way harder to get lost in this game than just about any other open world like Fallout, Elder Scrolls game. So I was quite surprised by that. But that's kind of that's the road that I went down. Let's go around a little bit. Or how about this? Maybe we should tackle this in terms of genre or like part of the game, so we can sort of like jump in and pick up the ball and talk over each other and all that sort of stuff. What do you guys want to talk about first? I guess let's talk about like the people who live in the Mojave Wasteland, the different factions, the different characters, the NPCs that we all run into. Maybe some of the weird stories that we've come across. Does anyone want to throw in first? Is there any aspect, or anyone want to talk about their love of the powder keggers, or their hatred of Kaisar's Legion?
Hatred.
Or hatred, or maybe there's some Elvis fans in here as well. Does anyone want to pick up the ball?
I could build off of what you were just saying a second ago. I feel like I totally agree. The desert has this bizarre kind of allure to it, and it's simultaneously kind of this place of utopian visions as much as it is this desolate wasteland. And so if you like, I've camped a lot in the area around the Mojave as well, like up by Lone Pine and stuff. And some of these places you'll go, and there's like abandoned ashrams from people who had utopian visions of going, and you can like hike up and see the mandalas they've painted on the walls and all this stuff. And it's unbelievably gorgeous. And it's like, because the desert is kind of a blank canvas, I feel like it can be a thing onto which people project utopian visions like that.
Yeah, there's one place in Death Valley called Stovepipe Wells. Have you ever been through there?
Yeah.
So the original like big house that's there was a guy who just made one. He's like a millionaire dude who just made like one road all the way up to this thing, and then built a house there in the middle of fucking Death Valley, and like tried to grow grass and like make it like. And it was like,
dude, if you're rich, that's you have the power to do that. You're like, I'll live wherever I want. But the other side of the desert is kind of you're driving through and you reach a town that's called like Butt Crack Springs, and it's like the saddest town you've ever seen in your life. But in those towns, you'll meet some of the most interesting people and some of the craziest stories, and I feel like New Vegas is kind of just taking that feeling of being in the desert and just twisting it into the future and exaggerating it a lot. So in a lot of ways, like despite the fact that this game is so post-apocalyptic and fantastical and over the top, it really does feel very grounded in the actual feel of that area. So Yeah, I don't know. In terms of favorite factions, I really liked the cons, who I initially, because they're involved in the intro and you getting shot, I immediately was like, well, I'm like gunning for you immediately. But like the fact that they're kind of ragtag and on the outs and stuff, like some of these factions are so powerful, and then they're just like a bunch of people who are like cooking drugs in an RV in the desert. Yeah, I don't know.
What's the name of the other faction that turns up every now and again that they literally look like meth heads? They're like the ones who have some of them have mohawks and stuff, and they have like
the Fiends.
Is it the Fiends? Is it something like that?
They're like maybe. Less of I was streaming this game to my girlfriend, and I had so many dumb mistakes, but maybe my favorite one last night was a bunch of Fiends came up, and I started shooting them all, and then Boone started shooting at a Brahmin that was with them, and I targeted it, and I thought it said friend Brahmin, and I was like, Boone, what are you doing? That's a friend, and it was a Fiend. I thought it said friend Brahmin.
Speaking to your love of dynamite, the Powder Keggers are maybe one of my favorite factions, just because of their like just the fact that they love throwing sticks of fucking dynamite.
Yeah,
like they just cannot help themselves. Throwing sticks of dynamite back at them was my main sort of. I thought it was just very funny having a war where both people were just throwing dynamite. Like it became like a baseball game or something, or like a game of like a coconut shy. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you know, whoever wins the battle is the person who's best at throwing, which isn't really like in what situation is like throwing the thing that wins you an argument.
It's like a prospector fight. Like two prospectors come along the same load, and they're like, "That's my goal." And there's all they have is dynamite.
I'm using my short fuse on you, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And it's just like the best. Like when you throw the dynamite over the hill, and then you hear that like. And it comes up like somebody got crippled, and you're like, fucking A. Like, and then you go over, and then there's like two of them have been blown asunder, especially when you hit that, what is it, level 6, I think, is when or 7 is when you can get the bloody mess perk chucked in there, which I always go for. Yeah. What about you guys? Frankie, Jesse, any favorite factions? Or
you know what? The thing that sticks out to me the most about New Vegas, the thing that I think about a lot, the thing that I really just love, and I think I asked Jeremy about this immediately when I found out you guys got early codes for Starfield. I was like, I have to know, are there radios in Starfield? There's not, which means it's the worst game ever made. But Fallout New Vegas has Mr. New Vegas.
Yeah.
Easily one of the greatest disembodied voices in video games, in my opinion. Wayne Newton plays Mr. New Vegas. Classical country musician, did the song Dankeschön, or however you're supposed to say that. I don't speak German. The song that Ferris Bueller sings, Dankeschön, darling.
Yeah. Dankeschön, yeah, thank you in German.
Yeah.
And I love the way that works. And I think I love it, one, because it's a ton of personality. I mean, it's like Three Dog from Fallout 3. But Mr. New Vegas has sort of a, I mean, Wayne Newton's nickname is Mr. Las Vegas, so he's Mr. New Vegas in the game.
Oh, funny.
Whoa, isn't it?
That's great.
But I think the thing that I love about the radio is the music is great. It sets the tone. It puts you in this world that Fallout New Vegas specifically, is trying to do. But also, I think the radio system, especially Mr. New Vegas, because they have the news, creates this environment for the world where like things are happening when you're not there, and things that you've done, you can feel their impact without having to return to them. Like if you do something nice for Good Springs, you'll hear like, this just in, the news of Good Springs, a guy woke up who got shot in the head and saved the old man with dynamite. And so things that you're doing, or like Prim, when you go to Prim and you get to pick the new sheriff of Prim, if you have high intelligence, which I had, you can you can make the robot be the mayor or the sheriff of Good Springs, and he's like on the radio.
The deputy's not very happy about it.
Oh no, nobody's happy about that. I don't have a job anymore. I'm just a guy. I'm not a deputy anymore. And they'll be like, oh, he'll come on, and it'll be like a little flavor to the world, and it feels like the things that you've done matter past just like giving you experience points. And
I wish I'd stuck that stuff on. I feel like I don't. Did you guys have the radio on?
Oh, the whole time.
Yeah.
I did not have it on actually. I had more of kind of like, I've listened to radios for a bit when I would come across them in the world, but I didn't have the passive radio on.
Actually, you know what? I did turn it off at one point. As soon as I joined Caesar's Legion, I was like, there's no way anyone in Caesar's Legion is listening to
like,
Johnny
turn off
Guitar.
That degenerate filth. Yeah. What is this? Yeah, the radio is degenerate. Dude, that's such a good point about the radio, because I feel like the tone of New Vegas is so much about how much of the like pomp and circumstance of like modern civilization is still intact, even though it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Like there are people out there eating like irradiated rat flesh, and they're like, you want to come play slot machines? You want to like, we got some girls here and some drinks, and like it's like
all the flesh on this person's face is like falling off, and they're like, I just got a million bottle caps. And you're like, okay.
Like one of my favorite things about science fiction generally as a genre, and this kind of I would classify as loosely science fiction, is that it takes some of the contradictions and absurdities and paradoxes of modern life, and it pushes them so far and exaggerates them so far that you can really, it's like a magnifying glass for some of the contradictions of our lives. And I feel like this is such a good one for how much luxury there is in the world while there's also so much like suffering and poverty, because there are people living in such horrible conditions, and there's like multiple casinos that like it's such an insane contradiction. I just love the like, they're like, yeah, we got to keep society
They're the only
going.
things that survived either. Like the only buildings that you can really enter on a regular basis are just casinos. Casinos and like
there's no
stores
like
with
big
nothing in them.
hospitals or anything. There's just like 3 casinos.
There's like a bank full of gold or something, and they're like, who cares about the gold? Where's the bottle caps? They're like, oh, let's go to the casinos that there's 19
I didn't see any
of.
libraries in New Vegas.
Yeah.
I remember there was this one guy who like I asked about New Vegas. He was like a random dude. I think he was like a checkpoint for the Deathclaw area north of Good Springs or whatever. And he was like, I was like, what do you think of New Vegas? And he was like, I don't quite like it. He was like, you spent 10 minutes there and you've wasted a month's wages. You know, they're all just there to take your money. And it's like, yeah, it totally speaks to that. And the squalor people live in, like in most of the Mojave, is fucking rough. The game does a great job of like, there's a lot of like flickering lights and like noisy machines in a lot of places too. Like a lot of the industrial place hovels where you'll find somebody who's like just like sleeping there. There's like a little, there's a load of tin cans empty everywhere in this shitty little bed, which I thought was quite cool. You mentioned Good Springs. I'm trying to think of where else this applies to, but Good Springs is a real town.
Oh, really?
So is Prim. Prim is actually on the way to Vegas. If you've driven to Vegas from Highway 15, so north of the Mojave National Park, that's 15. In fact, if you watched Fear and Loathing, Barstow that's the road they're driving on the way to Vegas is 15. That's the one that goes from LA to Las Vegas. Just spilled fucking Kirkland signature sparkling water all over myself. So
at least it wasn't soda.
That's true. I'm going to let that just soak in. It's going to get hot today anyway, so that'll be nice. But yeah, Prim's a real town. You pass it on the way. Searchlight's a real town. Boulder City's a real town. Obviously, New Vegas is too. But it is cool that they have like these spots that are, obviously some places are not real towns like Novak, but that is maybe my favorite named place in all of this game. That's such a clever, like the broken no vacancy sign. It's just a great little... Not just smart writing.
That reminded me of the in Horizon Forbidden West, when you get sort of closer to the end, there's the COs. I was thinking the same. I was like, oh, I love that kind of stuff where they just misinterpret something from the past. And like, that's how you say
CEOs,
it. Yeah.
COs. Yeah, it's pretty good. Frank Howley, you're being quiet there.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something that like spoke out to me. One thing that I didn't notice like on my first playthrough, this was like a late main quest game, was the essentially JFK assassination mission. The President Kimball, where you're on like the Hoover Dam, and you have to like you do security detail. You have to like I don't know. There's so many elements, and I was even looking at like the Fallout wiki, and there's like it can randomly generate 3 different ways the assassination happens. In my game, an engineer, like someone kills an engineer, and you find like their body in the blood in the closet, and then during like the big speech, they plant a bomb on the helicopter. So that was the thing I did. I diffused it. I guess in another one, someone can knock out one of the security guards who's in a sniper tower and replace them.
Oh, cool.
And
then in another one, I think one of the security guards next to him will go up and just stab him in the back.
Wait a second, Frank. So you were what, pro NCR in that case then? Yeah.
I think I did it balanced, but I was allied with NCR
at that point. Okay, because that's funny, because you found a dead engineer and defused the bomb. I was working for Caesar's Legion and had to take out Kimball. I was the engineer who planted the bomb.
That's
God.
cool.
This game is multiplayer. You were in Frank's game.
Yeah. I hacked in. I got you, buddy. Don't worry.
Oh my God, dude. That's really cool.
That's
I was really
smart.
curious about the Caesar's Legion stuff because I since this was kind of my first proper playthrough, I obviously wasn't going to ally with the women enslaving fascist
That'd be so weird
nostalgia
to do that.
critic. I definitely want to replay this game as a low intelligence character first of all because I've seen screenshots of some of the low intelligence
So
speech
funny.
stuff and it's so funny. I even like the bits of flavor text when you have insufficient skills to do certain skill checks. So like there was one towards the end of the game where you needed 70 science to do a bunch of hacking in the Brotherhood of Steel area in their vault.
Yeah.
And I had low science the whole game. So it was like 15 out of 70. And so they have like a virus outbreak on their computer system that you can help them fix. And and my response as like 15 out of 70 was like, well, you could just couldn't you just delete all the files? And it's like it's like your grandmother trying to do IT. Like it's so
That's brilliant.
funny.
So it doesn't not give you an option; it just gives you a bad option.
Exactly,
That's really
which
funny.
is so fun. I mean, that's like
Oh fuck.
that's like one of my favorite things about games writing in general is and Disco Elysium is perhaps the best example of this is like letting you not just be like the perfect hero, like letting you kind of role play, even just in like a little bit of moment, even if it's just flavor text, just like role play in your head your character as kind of like incompetent or dumb or clumsy. I don't know. It's just like there's such a particular type of humor that comes from it self-inserting into those situations.
I had a moment like that where I but in the game itself, not in dialogue, that I just thought was a very funny, silly, emergent thing, and it comes off the back of the faction stuff, I guess, but a particular element of it, which is the ability for you to disguise yourself, which is hardly ever in any of these games. You know, the ability to like stick on a Kaiser's Legion Legionnaire outfit, and then suddenly people sort of treat you like those. I had a moment where I was clearing out some of Prim, I think it was. I'm not sure. I think it was. I think that was all powder gangers. And I had I was running out of ammo and my armor was breaking and all this sort of stuff. And I changed all my shit. And then I went into the room in Prim where they're all holed up. And I walked in and they all fucking looked at me and just started shooting. I was like, shit, what the fuck did I do? And then I started shooting them back and I was like, I'm going to kill all you motherfuckers. And I was like throwing dynamite and doing all this stuff. And I reloaded the save like maybe 6 times before I realized there's no chance I'm going to be able to kill all these people. I was like, why the fuck did they attack me? And it was because I'd put on the powder ganger uniform and I didn't realize. So I walked in and they were like, it's one of them.
Oh my God.
So I didn't go back to Prim for like 4 hours maybe. I went off and did a bunch of other stuff and I was exploring and all that. And then eventually I like timidly walked back in dressed in regular clothing and nobody said anything. So I was like, okay. They're cool with me now, thank God.
So I had a similar situation, but the reverse, where I put on the powder gangers and then went into the building across from them where the powder gangers are, and they instantly recognized me. So in my head, I was like, okay, just disguises kind of don't work in this game. And then I have to share this like brief anecdote because this is my favorite moment in my entire playthrough. I went to the fort where Caesar's Legion are because I just wanted, like this game does a really good job of building them up. So then when you finally get to meet them, it's like, oh, this is the guy that I've been hearing about. So I went to the camp. I was severely underleveled to be doing this, but I went there and there's the quest where if you have the chip already in your possession, you kind of get railroaded into doing there's one of the 2 places you can insert the chip is under the Kaiser Legion fort. And so I got railroaded in. So they take all your stuff to go into the fort, obviously. And I wasn't going to help them. So they had all my stuff. And then they're like, all right, well, they'll give it back to you. Just go in there and then give them the chip. And so I go in there and they're like, all right, give us the chip. And then you can't leave. So at that point, my options were either totally change my headcanon and become a Kaiser's Legion fascist, or get all of my stuff and fight my way out of probably the most densely populated, highest level area in the entire game.
Goodness.
So I was streaming this game to my girlfriend who's played hundreds of hours of this game. And she was like, oh, you're just going to have to load another save. There's no way in hell you're fighting. You're like level 9. Like there's no way. So I assured her that Tits Nelson had this handled, and lo and behold, he did. I killed everyone in there, and I came out throwing dynamite like a madman. I had about 45 sticks of dynamite. And everyone in Kaiser's Legion is chasing me. I'm just throwing dynamite and yelling yeehaw.
Are you doing the running backwards, throwing dynamite
Yes.
at your feet thing?
Oh, the classic strategy.
So funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
And just like
why would if this was real life, why would anyone run after you? Because it's a video game.
Exactly.
It's like-
Just some crazed prospector. And so I would say for about 45, 50 minutes, I would like fight a few of them, jump off a cliff, eat a bunch of like rad scorpion meat, and then be like, all right, I'm going to load the save in a minute. I know this is stupid. And then I would do it again 5 minutes later, be like, I know this is dumb. I'm not going to make it. And 45, 50 minutes later, I had cleared the entire area. And I was barely
you decimated his army.
Killed everyone. And but then I was reminded then that there's another area when you go out where you have to get to the boat ramp, where there's another like 200 Kaisar's Legion guys.
Yes.
And so I was like, all right, well, this is where the Tits Nelson run comes to an end. No. And I put on Legionnaire armor because my armor was broken, and I walked out the door, and nobody batted an eyelash. And
my God.
And I just slowly walked down to the boat
tits.
ramp. And I was imagining the guys like in Kaisar's Legion as I'm like, hey, no, I'm just like one of you guys. They're like, is this like neurotic Jewish guy? Like, is he a new recruit? Like, who is this dude?
It really smells of blood and gunpowder.
He's really nervous and sweaty. And I just walked out of there and I just left.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
I just the point of that story is basically that my favorite thing about games like this is allowing you to do just insane shit you're not supposed to be doing and pull it off in the jankiest way.
So to that point, I will say the thing that disappointed me the most about this game was how hemmed in you are by the geography of the world.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to, like, right off the bat, once I got done with Good Springs, just kind of go explore. You go north, and there's the Deathclaw part there, and I kind of knew that was there from before because I had come at it from the north, 15 years ago, and I still remember. But I was like, okay, I'll go up and I'll see. Can't get through there, no problem. Then there's east of there, there's that windswept valley, which is a very high desert thing, right? You get those windstorms at nighttime, like those crazy ones. I've camped in Death Valley at nighttime, and it has been like, I had a rooftop tent, and I thought the thing was going to fucking.
It gets really scary.
Over.
Yeah,
it gets really bad. Yeah. So that when they were talking about, at nighttime there's this like very strange wind pattern that happens here. I'm like, yeah, there's like that's how the desert works, right? You get these huge big valleys and cliffs, and they just suck all the air down. I thought that was I went through that, and that was all hemmed in, like Disneyland style almost. And then I went south, and then there was parts where like the thing I love doing in these games is even if they don't like let you over something, like either Skyrim or Oblivion style like hill jumping all the way up, or figuring out some way to like climb on top of some bits, which is weird because the jumping in this game is always weird too. It's kind of like it's hard to run and jump on things sometimes if they're not super, super flat. But there was one part where I was trying to get over these hills. It was basically, I realized like, everywhere in this game, they are really saying you are going to go through this valley, and then that thing's going to happen, and then you're going to go through this valley and this, and it gives the illusion of open space, but it's actually incredibly dictated by the roads and stuff. I had one moment where I got over a hill, and I managed to Skyrim jump over the top, and I was like, awesome, I'm going to come in the back of this base. And then there was just an invisible barrier at the top of the mountain. It just would not let, it was flat, and I was walking, and it just wouldn't let me go. And I was like, and I'm guessing some of this has to do with maybe game streaming or something like that. There's no load screens in the open world, I don't think at all, but I'm wondering, is there some element of game streaming that's going on there? I'm not sure. Or it just might be design. I mean, first time through the game, everything works. I never remember playing Fallout New Vegas and thinking, this is a game that doesn't feel open. It always felt like I could go anywhere at any one time, but it was just very smartly telling me where to go. Yeah. Whereas this time around, because I knew all that stuff and I was trying to break it, it was kind of like, oh no, this is a bit Disneyland-y, at least the start of it is, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I had the same thing. I didn't even notice it for the first 16 hours of the game because it was my first playthrough, so I was very much adhering to kind of the prescribed path. But last night I finished up the game, and I was experimenting like that, and I could not believe how many invisible walls I hit and how frustrated I was about it.
Yeah, it's wild. It's I don't think I did any of that sort of stuff first time around, but yeah, for some reason this time it really hit.
Yeah,
it's wild. I don't think I hit any. Like, I don't think I had ever seen an invisible wall or anything.
Really?
Like that. Yeah,
the worst part for me was,
didn't care.
The death claw, the quarry where the death claws are. There's so many high level death claws in there, and I was like, I was just not prepared for it, and I fought maybe half of them, and then I got to the Deathclaw Mother, and I was just like, there's no way I'm going to do this. And so I started trying to go around the back, and apparently there is a way to go around the back, but God save me, I could not find it, and I just kept hitting invisible walls, and I probably spent like an hour and a half just looking for a way through and hitting invisible walls. It was really frustrating.
Damn.
How did you guys do with ammo? I did find myself running out of it quite a bit, and then having to just remember where people sold ammo a lot so I could go and pick that stuff up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
late game for me.
Oh yeah, late game for sure. As soon as you start actually fighting like power armor people, I feel like you're begging for ammo. But I really early on was like, I'm gonna play a nerd who's big into.
Cool.
I played myself, big into like energy weapons, and so I got a plasma rifle where every shot is 2 ammo. And I just like never, ever had ammo for my gun the whole game. It was so frustrating. Eventually, I spec'd into explosives because I just had so much dynamite for whatever. I had like 80 dynamite by the end of the game. I was like, all right,
Hell yeah.
screw it. Let's go all in. Yeah, ammo is incredibly scarce in this game, I feel like. And that's a good thing because it does kind of make you want to do other ways of resolving situations. So you're not always fighting. You're trying to do more speech stuff or barter or try to get around getting into combat scenarios or doing like, getting involved with the stealth if you know you're not going to win a fight easily. So there is like gameplay advantages to that, and it gives you a better opportunity depending on your role play or like what you're going for. But it can be incredibly frustrating, especially the last couple of missions where you have to fight a bunch of people and you're like, especially the very last thing, like the Hoover Dam fight. If you don't have enough ammo, forget about it.
Yeah, and you do that thing where like you hope that when you kill someone that they have a bunch of ammo, but they never really have that much ammo. You know what I mean?
Never.
Like it's always like, man, I should have just waited for you to empty your ammo and just beaten you to death. Like you only had 10 bullets on you. Like for real, that's fucked up.
I feel like this is kind of similar to the invisible wall problem, where I feel like New Vegas is a game that is incredibly open feeling as long as you play it in the way it kind of like roughly in the way it intends you to play it.
Yeah.
Whereas I felt like last night I was like, I just wanted to beeline for the ending, even if it wasn't the perfect ending, and I'll go back and do everything I want to eventually. But so I was doing things kind of out of order, and that's kind of one of the like soft gates in this game is, if you want to go fight a bunch of people who you're not prepared to fight, you're going to piss 300 bullets into like one Deathclaw.
Yes, you're right. Exactly.
And so it's kind of an artificial limitation. This game is kind of like, you can go anywhere and do it. It's like Breath of the Wild. You could go straight to Ganon, and it's like, yeah, well Ganon is going to suck up 4,000 bullets. So like I can't really.
Yeah, you're right. Totally. I had that same thing where there was a couple. I think it was the powder gangers have that the prison that they're in control of, and I was like, I want to go in and like do that whole thing, but I was like, I know I'm going to be losing. I'm going to be like net losing ammo the entire time.
I was
so
min-maxing bullets at the end. I was like a bullet financial expert.
I was like, should I put it all into? At one stage, I got like one of those huge clubs from a Nightkin. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
So those little stealth boy motherfuckers that live in. Yeah, and I was like, I'll just like use that maybe as a backup, and I can just wallop some jerks.
Hey, what weapons did Haley Williams use?
Oh yeah.
So as I play any Bethesda game or these types of games, is I hoard everything. So I took one weapon for every type of ammo type. So I would use something. Once I ran out of those bullets, I would switch to, like, honestly, kind of how I play like Resident Evil stuff. Like, so I did gravitate more towards energy weapons because I feel like with this game, that's kind of a unique feature. I feel like I've been playing so many other games with just regular guns, like Call of Duty, or even RE4. So it's like, all right, let me use the weirder guns. But then I also had 2 companions. There's always the robot. For a lot of it, I think I had like Boone. At one point, I had the companion that's like the giant mutant that is like also dressed as a grandmother.
Yeah.
I forgot character's name.
Forgot about her. Because I haven't thought about her in like 20 years. Wow.
Amazing. So like they would be my walking inventory cases. And so I never ran out of ammo, but like what I would do too, because I'm always min-maxing like inventory and bottle caps, every time I'd go to a vendor, I would sell as much as I can, and if they ran out of bottle caps, I would buy out all their ammo.
Oh yeah,
because
100%.
so that way everyone. Yeah, so And then it just came a matter, again, maxing out my achievements of just like, all right, I got 10,000 guns, damage, whatever. But I can't remember. I think I had some broken laser weapon that depleted ammo fast, but would one-shot people. So I kind of mixed it up. And I think that's why the game was always fresh to me. Every encounter, I would just kind of like look at a few random weapons, use all that ammo, switch to the next thing. So every fight would be different. Some would have to be up close. Some would have to do long range. When it came time to do the rocket launcher, I had like 30 rockets. There was a series of quests which I loved. I forget if her name is like the Red Heart Queen, the Queen of Reds or something. There's a lady who's like in charge of this underground base in I forget where it's called. And her series of missions, it's like the Hemet Nessingwary quests in World of Warcraft, where it's like, hey, I want you to kill 30 rad scorpions and get all their eggs. Hey, I want you to kill 30 of these animals. And like every time you come back, you think that's the next one, and it keeps increasing the scale. The last one are the death claws, and I think I have to like grind all the DLC before I can go back to it. I was never able to kill the death claws. I got overran constantly, but that was like a whole day of just me killing so many enemies in the game and leveling up a ton. But I think I also had some pistol that was extremely overpowered too. I think the guy you kill, Benny, is that the main guy? His pistol is super good. So once I had that, it was so satisfying. Like doing a lot of headshots, like everything in this game. Also the V.A.T.S system in this game. The number one, like the most terrifying, like death claws are great, but the real thing in this are they called like the Cardoza, the little like
the
lightning
Cazadors?
fast
Cazadors.
The Cazadors. Every single time it was one, you would hear them from like a mile away, and I think I would just try to do long range, boom boom, use all my ammo. They would go after my NPC companions first. I was always in constant state of poison, but those like that's so much of the game I remember. It's just kind of cheesing the gameplay systems in the open world, just trying to loot and like, I don't know, there's something about that. It clicked everything in my head. Again, maybe kind of like World of Warcraft. Again, it's an open world RPG, but like, I feel like I played it the way I would play an MMORPG, just like whatever's the closest quest on my map, go there. Am I underleveled? Am I like overpowered? Just do it, grind it. Instead of being in a party, I have my 2 NPC companions, looking up strategy guides. What's the easiest way to do this quest? Things like that. Like, I don't know. It was very, very, very satisfying.
Nice.
That's dope. Yeah. I did the ammo thing for sure. Just like hoarding ammo, just using that. And it was funny because then you also had like ammo is money in a weird way, but also bottle caps are money, which means drinks are money. And then also gold coins, old pre-war money is money, NCR money is money. There's like all of these
Cigarettes.
monies. Cigarettes are money. Yeah, totally. Yeah. There's like all these different types.
I like that there's like a conversion rate for the money. Like the NCR, if you go use their money at the Caesar's Legion, they're like, it's 1 Caesar coin or whatever the hell they're called. Like,
disrespectful.
Screw you, it's worth nothing.
Exchange rates.
Totally.
Can we talk about companions a little bit? I'm
Yes,
curious
I
who you
wanna-
guys
sure,
were
yeah.
running with. Yeah, who would you guys?
I never use them, so you guys talk among yourselves.
Okay, cool.
Boone,
I've heard
I can't believe you didn't use a companion because there's so many fucking good companions in this game.
Yeah.
But Boone's my boy. Every
Boone's
time I
my
play this
boy
game,
too, dude.
Boone, yo, Frank, you got Boone.
Boone Crew.
That's right.
Yeah, Boone was like my first like 10 hours I used Boone. It was awesome.
We're the Boone Dunes.
The
Boone
Boone
is like
quest is like the coolest quest to get a companion I can think of
It is
in,
really
in
good.
almost any RPG. It's so
This
so
is
cool.
this is the young NCR soldier. Where's that little
Yes,
red?
he's the
Yeah,
sniper.
the red
yeah.
beret.
Yeah.
I just love Boone because he's not even like there are more expressive companions. And
Yes.
when I got to the Lily quest, the big nightkin who's like the grandmother, I was like tempted to switch to Lily because she's so funny. But something about Boone, he's just got this like Bruce Willis Die Hard thing about him, where like everything that happens, he's just like, can you believe this shit? And then I would just like do the voice to him and be like, I can't believe this shit. And I just like, it was so much fun to just be like me and my boy Boone running around. And
Shout out to my boy Craig. That's his name, by the way. Craig Boone.
who's Craig?
That's
his first name?
His first name's
Yeah, his
Craig.
name's Craig.
It's Craig.
Oh my God.
Craig Boone.
That's crazy. That's like Hulk Hogan's first name is like Terry or something. Like
Yeah.
these
It's
big
not
tough
Hulk?
dudes. Yeah, I know it's not his birth name is not Hulk. His parents were like, Hulk is a nice name for a boy. We could
I mean, it's 2023, man, and you should hear I can't say much about my kid, but like, yeah, this kid's names right now are off the range, so I'm sure Hulk is right there. There's a soccer player for Brazil called Hulk. I'm not sure if it's his real name though.
That's awesome.
But do you guys want to? Well, I got a list of companions here if you want to.
Yeah, let's run them down.
Yeah, let's hear it,
Okay,
yeah.
we got. These are all permanent ones, I believe. So Lily, you mentioned already. Craig, you mentioned already. Arcade Israel Gannon. who is a member of the Follower of the Apocalypse in Freeside.
He's really cool. I almost switched to him too.
Ganon's
He's like
in
a
the game?
Gordon Freeman
That's
looking dude. Yeah. Raul Alfonso Tejeda, who is a jaded ghoul mechanic.
Oh, yeah,
former
this guy.
gunslinger. I think I had him. Rose of Sharon Cassidy, who is
She's very cool. I like her character.
Yeah, I had her, I think, most of the game. I liked her a lot.
oh cool. Anyone have Veronica Santangelo maybe?
She was awesome. She's one of the like Brotherhood of Steel companions, and I think her weapon was like the giant like robot fist. So she would just like punch enemies and explode their heads.
What's that
it was
called
awesome.
again?
Power Fist?
The
Power Fist, is that right?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Then you had that iBot that can follow you around,
Yeah,
Eddie or whatever it's called. Yeah.
And then
And then
best one,
there is a Rex.
my boy, the dog.
Rex.
Every
Yeah.
Fallout game should have a dog. Yeah, Rex is great. You get him from the Kings, right?
Is that right?
I
didn't
think so.
do it
I'm pretty
this
sure
time
he's hanging
around.
out with not Elvis, the King. Pretty sure you get him from
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
He's got the brain and the like the glass housing on his head, right?
Yeah, you have to give.
Yeah.
Do you have to
his
give him a new?
brain.
I didn't do this quest, but don't you have to give him a new brain to get him or something? Or am I mistaken?
is
Is that what it
right?
is? Right.
Because
Yeah.
when I was blowing up Caesar's legions, much to my chagrin, I blew up a dog and took his brain. So I was like, surely they wouldn't let me do something this psychotic if it wasn't to
Oh,
put
you know
into
what?
that
Yeah, I'm looking at
brain
the quest
robot.
description. Yeah, there's
So you
three
gave it
possible
gave him
brains
a
you could put in there.
fascist Brain.
I made him
Oh,
a
okay.
fascist dog. You know what this dog needs is fascist ideology.
You cannot teach an old dog new tricks, my friend.
You can teach him old
You
tricks
only-
though,
you
like
only-
fascism.
He's got those fast tricks.
Yeah.
That's all he's got. He doesn't have anything else. Speaking of that, just like other enemies and things like that. I love a ghoul. Ghouls are like the best thing that has ever been at. What are those red-skinned ghouls called again? They're from the Divide. They have like a. I need to. Marked Men.
Oh.
Do you remember Marked Men? Is that one of the expansion packs? Maybe I didn't come across them this time around.
I did not come across them either.
Former
You didn't see them in
NCR
your
troopers.
playthrough, Frank? No, there are a bunch of ghouls that are from what I always remember being, it's called the Divide. It's like this, you'll hear them talk about it and the people will say like, I wish the winds of the Divide would rip his face off or something like that. Like people talk about the Divide. It's basically like somewhere north of Northwest. I think it's like supposed to be Death Valley or like close to Death Valley. And it's a place where it's so windy that the ghouls' skin gets ripped off.
Oh.
So they have like red faces from the sand.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, they're called Marked Men.
Yeah, it looks like it's
I
from
think they
Lonesome
might be-
Road, the DLC.
Lonesome Road, yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
reading.
Okay,
now.
there you go. That's what it was. Yeah. So I got to do those DLCs again. They're a good time. What about you guys? There's one of my other favorites, I guess. Quickly, I'll mention is the I forget what they're called, but it's the coyotes that are also snakes.
I don't know if I came across that.
Man, I
You
think
were
I was
really
just like
exploring,
finding.
yeah.
Well,
the-
while we're on there, I did start one of the DLCs, and I want to go back to it because I beat the game and then I needed to take a break. But I started Old World Blues, which is like a very 1950s sci-fi. You get all your organs replaced by like cybernetic parts, and you have to do quests for aliens. There's one where you go into like a vault.
Oh, dude,
yeah,
that's primo.
yeah,
It's so good.
They call your fingers like penises. They don't know what those are. It's like this creature has 10 penises. And it's like no, like it's like the writing's great. One of my favorite like enemies in the game, and I freaked out when this happened. You go into like a little suburban neighborhood, and in the doghouse, a tiny little deathclaw runs out at you. Like it's a tiny little thing, and it's named Stripe. And it's straight up supposed to be like a gremlin from Gremlins. It's just called Stripe, and it's a little Deathclaw, and it's like holy shit! It's a gremlins chasing after me, and it's this tiny little boss. It's a little miniature Deathclaw. I think that's only
amazing.
in Old World Blues, but I saw that and was like, yes, I love it. Like
That's so cool.
The Night Stalkers, sorry, I've just looked it up, are the
that's
weird
the
creatures
cobra
that are
dogs?
like. Yeah, it's like a rattlesnake and a dog thing together. Yeah, you'll find them in like caves and stuff, and they're usually in packs.
Oh, I
Yeah.
did see these.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You
These
know
are
those
powerful.
things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I remember them because this is the quest you do with Lily to help the Nightkin in Jacobstown.
Oh, okay. Right.
I think at that point in the game, you go into a cave. At that point in the game, I was using explosives, so I entered the cave, saw a bunch of red icons, and blew everything up. So I never saw them. I just saw their organs
That's
everywhere.
unbelievable. They're also
the thing
stealth,
that's
so that makes sense.
amazing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I saw them and I would just throw grenades and stuff and blow up. And then, but then the one thing that sucks using rocket launchers is like it blows up like all the items and loot, so you have to run around.
Oh, it makes them go everywhere. Is that?
Yeah. So like I feel like there's a lot of loot delicately placed. Like here's a weapon, here's a journal, and then when you use rockets, it just who knows if you're ever gonna find it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love the physicality of the loot in this game. One of the running bits I was doing to amuse myself was you would go into places like Gloria's weapon shop in outside of the strip, and where they're like super strict and they kill anyone who messes with them and everything, and they have all the like expensive ammo and weapons and stuff on the walls, and you know if you steal it they'll shoot you, but if you just like move it around they don't care. So I was just being like, oh, oops, and just knocking everything off of the shelves like Mr. Bean.
That's amazing.
I don't know. This game is such a social playground in that way, where I feel like they give you enough weird interactions like that to like outside of just talking to people to just like kind of role play in dumb ways. And yeah, I don't know. It has because I really like CRPGs, but there is a distinct feeling of like visceral self-insertion when you're playing something that's like first person and has physical interactions, and you can like, you know, put a bucket on people's heads and stuff like Skyrim kind of things. Like,
oh yeah,
it's just, I don't know, it just like is a fun the playground.
Yeah, it felt very like there's no getting around the fact that in these games, like if you the cognitive dissonance that you have to imagine that some of this stuff isn't just like Disneyland, right? Where like, you know, you're solving every problem for everyone and you're going in and like everything unfolds while you're there. Like when I did the guy in Novak who when you're trying to find out, you know, it's on the main quest, the Golden Path, and he's like, oh, can you kill all the death claws over in the, you know, factory? And then you go to there and it's like it's a cult, and then there's the human guy who thinks he's sorry, not death claws, ghouls.
Yeah.
There's a human guy who thinks he's a ghoul, and then there's the whatever your guy's name. His name is like Glow or Bright or something, right? Because he's a feral one. Is that what they're called? But he's he's a glowing one, but he's not feral, so he's just like. And then they're like going to go off on these rockets. You know, you go down to kill the Night King, and then you see the rockets, and you call up. You know, it lets you find the rockets if you want before you go back up to them, and you know you can just go straight back up, and they'll do whatever, or you can see that, and you're always there. You're there for when they take off, like the whole thing. But for whatever reason, the writing is so good that it never feels. It feels so jolly and not, you know, you're just happy to go along for the ride, and even just like. I remember like bumping into somebody and them just saying like, oh, have you been to the such and such? Like, it's really cool in a way that felt like very honest and like, yeah, that would be something I would say if I had just arrived in this town. And the voice acting is all very strong. And so, yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It's really hard to find anything. Like even now, it doesn't, even on the Steam Deck, like there's a certain amount of maybe, I don't even know, like controller stuff that's a little bit weird. Like there's no weapon wheel. There kind of is. You can use the D-pad to do something. Accidentally giving myself stim packs all the time. Sets like right, but like there's no. But aside from that, it plays like perfectly fine. Like it doesn't feel like a modern game, but it doesn't feel like it's fucking ancient either. It feels.
Did you use any of the community layouts at all for the Steam Deck, like the Steam Input stuff?
No, I didn't. I hardly ever do. I should probably give that a go actually, but it doesn't change. That stuff only ever changes just the. Like I think these days what it does is it defaults you to the one that's the most popular. I think
sometimes
unless the developer has one themselves, which I don't think this one does. But I don't know. But then again, this game was made for the 360, so it has like a traditional sort of 360 controller setup, which I think largely is what I was stuck to. But yeah, in terms of that, what did you guys think in terms of like how it looks, the performance, all that sort of stuff? Like, was there any parts that looked
this game crashed a million
rough around the edges?
Did it actually?
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't even count how many times this game crashed.
I would say probably.
Well, I never crashed once on my Steam.
In
That's
25
the power
hours,
of Proton.
I probably had an average of a crash per hour, if not more.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I just saved a lot.
Yeah, even on, I will say on Series X, it runs great. It looks great. Having like no load times finally, like on an Xbox version is great. But even then, I would say every 2 or 3 hours, it would just freeze.
Right.
Thankfully, like I got very good at auto saving. I think the game you know what? Now that I think about it, there were times I would lose like 15, 20 minutes of progress.
Oh, that sucks.
So I got in the habit of auto saving. But I think a lot of the game, when I think about it, it is like 5 to 10 minutes of walking and then you kill the thing. So like I the one thing that would always bum me is when a hard save or crash is like, damn, I would spend, again with maybe my place, I would spend like 15 minutes doing inventory stuff, repairing stuff, inventory put here, and then it would crash and it's like, what? I don't care. I'm just gonna sell this gun. I don't know. But again, I think here's what drives it. A lot of times when I'm playing a game and it crashes, I don't care. Uninstall. This sucks. I'm gonna keep playing. It didn't affect. It's like I don't care. Let me get back to it. Like there was one period. This was like maybe 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, where it was like once we knew we were gonna do this, it was like cool. Let me sit down and play. Let me play like 3 hours of it, right. And then I think I stayed up 10 hours just straight playing it. And I was like, all right, I think I'm done. Woke up the next day, played like 6 more hours, like. And then that, like, let's say 12, 14 hours, like, I felt like my brain had taken a vacation. Like, it was soothing mentally. Whatever I was stressed about, it really did feel like a vacation. It was like, I just got in such a groove with this. And my friend who's a streamer, Kimono Friendzone, he was also someone who was like giving me tips and tricks. He says like this game's a cure for like ADHD. Like for me, I'm always, every hour I have to do a new thing, playing a new game or something. This was a game I was able to just like, I feel like because within the game, there's a million things you can do. So within the game, you can change your brain or do whatever you want to focus on. But like, it feels so good and satisfying. And the constant XP ticks, the constant skill checks, progression checks, every 2 levels you get to pick a new perk, and every single one is interesting or satisfying or weird. Like I did the femme fatale one, which allows me to romance, and I was a girl. So the way I was able to kill Benny and get the platinum chip is you run up to Benny and he's like, "What the hell? Are you the dame I killed?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm back. Hey, you want to fuck?" Or whatever. I don't mean to be that crude, but like it was like that's what accelerated. He's like, "You're crazy. You're crazy." Like, I mean, it was way smoother, way more noir, and you know, but like it was that. And then within like 3 dialogue checks, I was in his room, and there was a it's black screen dialogue. "Oh, baby, I'm putting my legs out of work," or whatever. And then he rolls over, he falls asleep. Like that's straight up. The scene ends and he rolls over and falls asleep. "Oh, babe, I gotta snooze," something like that. And then it's like the dialogue thing is like, "Do you want to kill Benny?" "Yes." "What's happening?" And then like it's all kind of cinematic. And then when the cutscene ends, in very old 360 like these games, his body just ragdolls on the bed, and then he could just loot everything. But it was like,
that's
holy!
Amazing.
I don't know how else you're supposed to do it. If there's more, if I skipped quests, but it's like the fact that I picked that skill perk to play as a woman, do the femme fatale thing. I know you can also do, I believe, like if you're, I think you can also do romance males or a same gender thing.
They have the other one, yeah.
So I'm sure it works either way, but it was like, damn, that paid off. There were so many little things where it's like, wow, I'm happy I had just enough points in this to get such a weird option. And I can see why people want to replay it. As like Jeremy said, I think this game has one of the best low intelligence runs. Jesse did the Caesar playthrough, and it's like, oh, I kind of want to do, that sounds fun. So I wouldn't be surprised down the line if I do a new game plus. And everyone I've talked to have said they played this game like 5 times. Like the people who are nuts about this game have played this game in so many different variations.
Did any of you guys do Wild Wasteland? Because I did, but I don't know if I saw any of it.
Oh, God.
There's a couple really funny things.
Is it spoilery, or is it like...
No, it's just like random things that you see throughout the world. One of the early ones you see.
I didn't do this. I was so curious about this. So I would love to be spoiled on some of this stuff because I didn't do it, honestly.
Well, okay, so as soon as you leave Good Springs, there's like a fridge on the left. And I think this game would have come out around the same time as Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. When you're walking down the road...
this is years before Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Right? Oh, Crystal Skull did not come out that long ago. Right?
I mean,
on the
wiki,
it says
this
is a
when
reference
to
the 4th Indiana Jones movie, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
You're fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
I'm so old.
Sorry,
2008.
Man.
Really? Crystal 2008.
There you go.
2008. And when did
2010,
Vegas was
right?
2010.
Oh my God. I'm so old. I take it back. I'm sorry.
I loved that movie as a child. It sucks. There's
a child. Oh my God, you're a child.
I'm so sorry. I would have been in elementary school. I had a bootleg DVD of that I watched on my old Trinitron.
You just killed Danny by telling him this.
Yeah, dude.
It came out on DVD. Came out on Betacam. Jesus Christ.
I had a floppy disk of this movie. 10 of them. So when you're walking down the street, there's as you're leaving Good Springs, there's a fridge on the left with a cowboy hat and a skull, like just a skeleton in there.
Nice.
And it's like, it does the woo sound that plays when you see something from Wild Wasteland. It doesn't happen too
cool.
often. I only saw in my own playthrough this time one other thing by the Hoover Dam. I don't even know what it was. It just was like Wild Wasteland, and it did the thing. And I was like, what happened? But there's so many random little things you can see. Frank, did you see anything?
Yeah, there was one that was really funny. I was just doing a quest, so I was in some dungeon, and then the Wild Wasteland thing, and it was like two housewives or two like 50s like moms, and they had like a rolling pin, like it was like very like Tom and Jerry stereotypical, and like I forget what they were called, but it was just two ladies like coming up to attack me, and I killed them, and then one of them dropped a very good switchblade that I used, but like yeah, just random encounters, random ambushes. I'm trying to remember what other weird things. I feel like there's a lot of.
Were they wearing oh, I see it here. Maud's Muggers.
Oh yeah.
When leaving Cerulean Robotics, a group of three elderly women named Irate Ida, Rancorous Ruth, and Malefic Maud, wearing pre-war spring outfits while armed with rolling pins or switchblades, will strike. They often have a small amount of caps, showing the success of previous muggings. Freeside drunks and locals may occasionally mention the gang. This is a reference to the Monty Python sketch titled Hell's Grannies, about gangs of old ladies attacking fit, defenseless young men.
That's awesome.
Man, that's Maud's Muggers. That's wild.
See, this is like
Wild Wasteland.
This is one of the reasons I want to replay this game almost immediately. Like I'm gonna play some other games for a bit, but I definitely I intentionally wanted to finish the game, A, because of this podcast, and B, because like I didn't want to see everything on my first run, because this game is so replayable. So yeah, like that just has.
I mean, each of us, I think I've played it maybe 3 or 4 times. Frank, you've done it.
Yeah, let's say like 2 times basically.
Yeah, and then Jesse, you said you did it like
about
3 or 4 times as well, right?
Yeah.
It is one of those games that even when it came out and people played it, you kept going back to. It's such a, I don't know, it's like warm and fun and it's like it's never boring. There's no lull in it. I think it's like consistently good the whole way through is what I remember as well. Like there's always something to do. I'm a little bit disappointed it's not as free form as I would hoped, but I think that's a small price to pay for. And it's a good question for, like, you know, when you look at games like Starfield and you go, you know, that's a game in which it really does let you go in sort of any direction, but then you don't have control over things like pace or plot or, you know, exposition or, you know, how the player is learning the systems or what stories they're even coming up to. You know, you can presumably play Starfield and hit a bunch of the stories that maybe aren't the best stories that are in there, you know, and maybe that doesn't feel as good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the there's such a fine balance between curation and openness in games like this. Like Starfield, I think is kind of a great example of the other end of the spectrum. But I think the thing this game does so well, the way in which it expresses openness, is in moments like Frank was saying about the Benny quest. I replayed the part where you confront Benny finally at the casino. I reloaded and played that probably about 6 or 7 different times because there are so many different ways it can go. And so I feel like the physical openness of New Vegas is sometimes an illusion, but the narrative openness is actually quite dense. And because I feel like there's a risk, especially when the narrative openness is referring to, like, do you do choice A, B, or C? And what you would think is that you could reload 3 times and each of those would lead to 1, 2, and 3 discrete outcomes. But what actually happens is that as the game approaches the strip, the spider web of narrative connections like flanges outward in a million different directions, and then they all coalesce in different ways. And so it's giving you this like incredibly wide possibility space. And so I feel like the openness in this game is expressed more as narrative possibility space and in range of interactions rather than like physical space.
That's a good point. Maybe there's and perhaps that is in service. Maybe you kind of can't have one without the other in a way. Like maybe you do need to rein in the player. Yeah. That's funny you mention it that way, because I can see the sort of the 3-act structure of New Vegas now that you mention that, where like the first one is sort of more prescribed, you interacting with like the various factions sort of on their terms, who you side with, who you don't. There's a couple of moral choices. There's obviously the karma system, which is sort of laying in the background for this whole thing as well. And then when you get to the strip, you're right, you sort of, there's a bit more openness there just by virtue of the fact that you can go off and there's a lot more side quests, I feel like, there too. But you've gone through this sort of like mini game before you get to the strip as well. And I wonder if, Yeah, I mean, it would just be a lot of fun to do a documentary on this one and talk to a lot of the folks who worked on it. But it's yeah, I'd love to know how they approached it, and especially because it looks like this was developed in a fairly short period of time as well. Like it wasn't like they had a lot of time, and they were also working on the what's it called? It's not the emotion engine. What's it called? Their one, the I forget what it is. The whatever one they use for Oblivion and Fallout and all those. Which
Gamebryo?
is I have heard.
No.
It's based on Gamebryo, isn't it? But it's called something else. It's like I think Jeremy's doing a little bit of Googling there. Which I've heard from people who have worked in it is particularly idiosyncratic. So maybe something tough to sort of wrangle in, and all they added all their own
creation.
Stuff the creation engine. There we go. Thank you. Nice and vague. Is there anything we have not talked about? Anything something wanted to bring up or as part of their notes or an element of the game or a moment or anything?
I just want to talk about V.A.T.S. We kind of touched on it very briefly.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I feel like I feel like there's two camps that people fall into. They either think that V.A.T.S. is awesome or it's the worst, and I definitely think it's kind of fantastic. I have very fond memories of playing Fallout 3, and I think the reason it stood out to me is that like V.A.T.S. there's a version of Fallout 3 that has, you know, technically like better first person shooting and is more like crunchy and satisfying in a more traditionally first person shootery way, like a Call of Duty. But I think V.A.T.S. is a very clever way of solving the problem of how do you RPGify a first person shooter? Because if it's just bullet sponges and it's just real time shooting, then you're just pummeling bullets into dudes and they're just like taking them and it's just pop around the corner. And even with V.A.T.S., it kind of does end up that way sometimes, where you just like dump a clip and hide and dump a clip. But something about V.A.T.S. really breaks up the cadence of battles for me, and the pacing feels more like an RPG to me. And I don't know, I just think it's an incredibly clever solution to like, how do you make a real-time first-person shooter feel like an RPG?
Yeah, I also think V.A.T.S. kind of contextualizes the RPG elements of the shooting past just like stat proficiencies. Like having more AP allows you to do more attacks in V.A.T.S. and having better accuracy makes it easier. But it also takes things like 10% more bullet damage with like, you know, regular firearms. That doesn't make any sense. Like when you think about it on like a technical level on a human being, there's no way you're 10% gonna do 10% more damage with a bullet. It's a bullet.
You just push the gun forward
I
as
just
you're
like
shooting.
I trigger so much better. Oh, because I'm level 11. Like that doesn't make any sense. But for whatever reason, V.A.T.S. creating this like stat element to it makes it make more sense. And if you play in hardcore mode, there's like your limbs can become damaged, and so your accuracy is less. You're less accurate both in V.A.T.S. and in regular shooting. And I feel like V.A.T.S. existing and creating this framework of like stats and numbers and almost bringing that sort of statistical chance that you see in the dialogue of like a skill check determining whether or not you're going to succeed a conversation, putting that into the shooting, like you said, Jeremy, RPGifying first-person shooting. I think the way that it does that makes so many elements around V.A.T.S. and around shooting and just the general RPG choices that you make for the character makes so much more sense. It completely demystifies all of that.
It's funny. I think a lot of that is like V.A.T.S. I'd love to know like how it happened in Fallout 3 that it came in. I think there was like two specific. I would imagine when I go back and look at that, there's like two issues that are happening there. One of which is V.A.T.S. was such a critical part of those first two Fallout games that you kind of have to have something that is that. It would just feel very odd not to, especially when you've brought over so many of the RPG systems that were in that original game. It would feel like a obvious omission maybe. And when Fallout 3 was coming out, like there was a lot of scuttlebutt around this is not my Fallout. You know what I mean? Like people will still say that. Like they shouldn't make this first person game. It's not being made by the original creators, all that sort of stuff. So I think there was a large degree of like care being brought in to try and get something over. I wonder how V.A.T.S. changed during that transition maybe. And the second part is a platform issue, which is what this was Bethesda making a first person shooter. And it wasn't a dungeon crawler or a corridor crawler. This was a game in which you're going to be shooting at people who are quite far away a lot of the time. And when you're doing that with a console, it's a completely different story than if you're playing on PC. And I mean, I'm playing on a Steam Deck, which is effectively like playing on a console. And there are times when you're playing where it's just like, you either use V.A.T.S to set the shot up to like, you use V.A.T.S and then get out of V.A.T.S so you're centered on them, or you're using V.A.T.S because they're just simply too far away. Like you can't in real time get that type of accuracy for it. Is there much of a difference between the New Vegas V.A.T.S and Fallout 3? I think it's basically the exact same, right?
I wouldn't imagine, no. Didn't notice anything.
I don't think they did anything else. It's funny because Fallout 4, they did make the decision to have it so it does not pause the action, it slows it down. So they're kind of like slow-mo like this, like, and then you're like G and changing all the stuff. And that definitely changed the vibe of the combat a bit. I don't not like it, but it's definitely a bit different. But yeah, it's so satisfying. It's not quite as satisfying as XCOM, but it gives you a little bit of that a lot of the time.
That's actually a good comparison. I never would have thought of that, but it does the like something about the moment of like pause in the middle of a firefight is just like, it gives you the clarity to appreciate what's going on. There's like, a grenade that's frozen in the air. There's like 7 dudes aiming at you, and you're just like, oh, like,
and then there's a bloat fly that's like 50 yards behind you in the opposite direction, which and then it sort of
and then you flip
spins around and tells you.
That's like Boone uses a sniper rifle. This happened to me so many times. Uses a sniper rifle and just like will murk something that's like 100 yards away, and you'll get the kill with him and it snaps over. Yeah, every time I'm like,
dude, it scared the hell out of me every time. I don't know why. Dude, speaking of kills, like good kills, the probably the hardest I laughed this entire game was in the final showdown. You get an anti-material rifle from one of Caesar's legions. It's a huge sniper rifle that shoots 50 cal bullets. And going into the final encounter, I would just run up to dudes and fire from the hip, and they would go flying over the edge of the dam. And I was dying laughing, dude, because like you would get a crit and they would just go like and just shoot.
It was like you're using the Joker's like punching arm or something.
Yeah, it was like the fucking Riddler, dude. Yeah, it was awesome. It was
you're
so
riddling
much
them
fun.
with bullets.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
the
it. Yeah.
Riddler in another sense. But
I've had that happen in Counter-Strike 2 with the AWP, especially when I'm doing the death match and it spawns me with one, and I turn around, there's a guy right there, and I just go, and I just like,
it's so much fun.
It's a good time.
Yeah, this game is so good. I loved this game so fucking. It's gonna be very hard to choose our next like Noclip Game Club game because
I thought you were gonna say it's very hard to pick game of the year.
Oh no,
I don't think this
but
applies.
It's gotta be Fallout.
I don't think it applies.
Game of the year 2023.
Yeah, fucking hell. Any other bits and bobs? I mean, there's so much in this game.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about Mr. House or the Kings the Kings are such a great.
Yeah, it's so funny.
I just love it's so well executed too. It's such a smart. It totally makes sense that there would be, because there's so much Elvis shit around Las Vegas, and people already dress up as Elvis a lot, today. Like it's such a thing, and it just makes complete sense. But I loved like. It's not just aesthetic, like when you're talking to them and they're like talking about like what it means to be a king and all this, you're like, yeah, like I get, like, yeah, I get it. Like it's rich and deep, and like everything just has that care to it. Like it feels very lived in a way in which even Fallout 3, like, I don't know, like some of the towns feel realer than others in Fallout 3. Like Megaton always felt a little bit like, yeah, I guess, but maybe people wouldn't live outside this bomb. I'm not quite sure. Maybe, but then like whatever the name of the big tower was that the guy lived in, where the ghouls were in the building next door, whatever that was, that felt like a real spot. And maybe it's the desert. Maybe it's something about where would you go? Like where else would you go? If you have the money, you live in New Vegas because you can get in behind the walls and you can afford to be there. But if you're not there, there's where else do you live? Like, yeah, you stay in Good Springs because you know people and because there's security in knowing your neighbors and, banding together like you do in that first quest. And, if you live in, Novak or whatever, it's a similar thing where it's like, we're on a bit of a plateau here. We've got the dinosaur and the guys with the sniper rifle in there. They're checking. Like it feels so lived in. Like, yeah, it makes sense that they're here and they're kind of, they can see people coming, and they also have like a lookout who's like checking for anyone who's going to come and can sound the alarm. And it just, everything feels like very, I don't know, thoughtful.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of consideration, and it feels more grounded or believable or whatever it is as a result.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this game fun to explore in a narrative sense, like just going around and talking to people, is that it feels like there are logical causal connections between the things that you're going around and doing. And so when you go talk to someone, it's not like they're not just going to feed you a bit of like bullshit flavor text about like the empire has risen again, and then it doesn't apply to anything. It's just sort of like flavor text. I feel like almost everyone I talk to, other than like, there are people who just have filler things like that. They're just walking down the strip that's like generic gambler. They're like, I lost all my money. But like, I feel like every named NPC will say something that has some sort of causal connection to somewhere else in the world or some other NPC, even if it's not quest related. And yeah, so it's just like, it feels like New Vegas's writing really respects the player, because it's not just like filling its world with tedious detail. It's filling its world with meaningfully curated and crafted little bits, little touches, little like flourishes that reward you, that reward your curiosity.
Josh Sawyer did a GDC talk, by the way, about this game.
You should check it out.
The writing on it specifically. Everything that you guys have been talking about in terms of like how talking to characters feels like this legitimate thing. Like it's not just, and he specifically brings up like there's a lot of RPGs you'll play where you go up and talk to a character and all the dialogue options you have are like, what is this? Tell me about the Reapers. This game, and the thing that Obsidian tries to do, and I think succeeds in pretty much all their games, is creating scenarios where like exposition is not the only reason you talk to a character. If you want to learn more, like there will be a dialogue option, but this game and all of their games moving forward have been like, you are talking to someone, this is a character who cares about things, and if you're learning something from them, it's them just telling you about the world. It's a really fantastic talk that like explains their approach to like character prototypes and like why certain ways of playing New Vegas feel way better than other ways of playing New Vegas, and their approach to just writing for scenarios and side quests and stuff. Yeah, absolutely watch it. It's an amazing 50-minute plus thing. It's really, really good.
Excellent. It's on GDC's YouTube channel, is it? Brilliant. Awesome. Yes, Josh Sawyer, of course, of Pentiment fame and many other games, but we do love Pentiment around these parts. Was a lead designer on this project, lead as well, I believe, or project coordinator, according to Moby Games. A lot of familiar faces or names on this. Mikey Dowling was a producer on this, which I think is incredible, because he's like, I still consider him to be a young guy. He's like head of their, I don't know, PR or not PR, or marketing or some production. I don't know. I talked to Mikey. He came to our talk, actually. We met him at
that's cool.
After our Noclip panel up at PAX West, which was a lot of fun. Justin E. Bell, who we interviewed at Obsidian a number of years ago. John Gonzalez was the creative design lead and lead writer on the project, who we interviewed over at Gorilla, because he worked on...
narrative director for the Horizon games, right?
Yeah, exactly. He was brought over for that. Chris Avalone was a writer on this as well. Eric Festenmaker, Travis Stout. I think I heard of Travis before. I think I know Travis. Yeah, he worked on a bunch of Ubisoft stuff. So it just seems like there was a pretty good bench here of folks working on it as well, which makes sense. And obviously a lot of the history of that franchise as well. A lot of those folks bouncing around there too. So it will be a fun game. Matt Rory has a credit on Fallout New Vegas. I did not know that. That's wild. I know he was at Obsidian and he worked on some other stuff there, but he has a credit here as one
credit on the game that I couldn't possibly ignore. It was bothering me the entire time I was playing it. Maybe it did for you guys too. If you know voice actors in anime and video games, Yuri Lowenthal voices, I swear to God, every character in this game. It threw me off so much. Everyone, because he plays Spider-Man and he plays a bunch of other characters, but specifically Spider-Man 2018, he voices Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Same person, by the way. Spoilers. Funny. The entirety of New Vegas. Like every NPC is Yuri Lowenthal, and I'm like, oh, it's so distracting. Spider-Man's telling me about the powder gangers, and then I immediately go over and it's like he's also Caesar's Legion. It's
do you want to know a couple of the other? There's a pretty stacked cast here. Actually, we talked about Matthew Perry as Benny.
Caesar.
Chris Christopherson plays Chris Hanlon.
Yeah.
Caesar is John DeMann, who
he's a sheriff. He's like from The Wire, right?
Yes, or The Shield. No, you're right. The Wire, isn't he?
Yeah,
is
he's
he
like
Shield?
the lead
Wire.
whoever of the police.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. He's Major Williams.
Yeah.
in The Wire. Yeah. Zachary Levi is Arcade.
Oh, that's so cool.
Ron Perlman was the narrator, of course.
Yeah.
Michael Dorn was Marcus. Michael Dorn is Worf from Star Trek. Danny Trejo is Raoul. Which I did not know. Danny Trejo was in this game. And Felicia Day played Veronica.
Oh.
She must have been. Here I am saying she must have been really young, but I've learned that fucking Crystal Skull came out 70 years ago. So who knows what anyone is at this stage. Will Wheaton was Robo Brain as well.
Of course he was.
So you gotta. So just stacked TNG cast going in there in Fallout New Vegas. Any other thoughts, comments, concerns?
I only have one more thing I need to bring up about this game.
Okay, do it.
If you didn't know, Ice-T, huge gamer, loves video games.
Yes.
He live
Final
tweeted his
level
experience.
himself.
Yeah, that's right. Live tweeted his experience of playing the game Fallout New Vegas. And he has easily the best review of this game. It goes, and I quote, Fallout New Vegas. It's slow. The load screens take forever. Too much talking. It froze once. But I can't stop playing it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Brilliant.
I think Ice-T nails it.
Love it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Ice-T is a renaissance man. Not only is he like a rapper, he is also a thrash metal enthusiast as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what's Body Count, right? Isn't that the name of the band? Yeah.
Famous song, Was it Cop Killer?
Cop Killer.
Amazing.
It was right. It was during the
my boy.
during the LA riots and stuff. They got. I think they ended up actually taking that off of the album. Cop Killer. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thrash metal. You should listen to it, man. It's like it sounds like him, but it doesn't sound like him. It's like it's pretty gnarly because you grew up apparently listening to metal as well as R&B and stuff.
Oh, they put out a new album or a new song. It looks like
they still tour. Like I think I've seen Body Count live. Have you, Frank? They're always at stuff.
I haven't seen them live, although Body Count did a cover of Institutionalized by Suicidal Tendencies.
Oh, cool.
There's a music video for it, and in it, he changes one of the verses to getting locked out of his Xbox Live account and him having to call Microsoft tech support. It is insane. Seriously, look up the music video for Institutionalized. He's playing his Xbox. His wife comes home, and he's like, she wants me to turn off the Xbox. I said, hell no, I'm playing Xbox. She says, like, it's amazing. So check it out.
Yeah, Body Count are like a good time metal band. Like everyone is. It's like it's pretty cool. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if they're still touring. It must be because it's kind of like an on again, off again band. You know what I mean? It's not like they're around all the time, but like it's like 1989 they were founded.
Wow.
They were like early in like this wasn't some new metal side project he was working on. This is like. He was doing this like right off of the back of all that early stuff.
Speaking of Body Count, I had to look it up. I had to check his Moby games because I was like, I know he's been in games. Which ones are they?
Right.
In Crime Boss Rock A City, there's a credit for Body Counts in the House. Is that a song in the game by Body Count?
Oh, must
Frank,
be.
didn't you play that?
They must have just done a.
I didn't play.
You
I
didn't play
Chuck
that?
Norris is in that too. No, I feel.
Oh, is that new game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to check it
Michael
out.
Rooker is in it and other people. Chuck Norris.
That makes sense.
Ice-T.
I mean that's
Vanilla Ice.
that is a very rap thing to do, right? Is to do like a shout out song, right, about yourself or your band or your crew. So that makes sense. He's in Payday 3 as well, apparently.
Dude, what an icon. Yeah, he's Mac.
San Andreas.
Of course,
in.
yeah. Mad Dog, right?
Yeah. It's not wild. He's in Gears of War 3.
That's awesome.
He is.
Apparently.
He is a wrestler in Def Jam Fight for New York.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Of course, yeah.
Def Jam Icon's my favorite of all of those.
Wow, that's the
one where
most wrong thing anyone's ever said.
Really? You don't like Icon?
Def Jam Icon's terrible. That's a
Are
bad
you
video game.
freestyle into the mic, or you
but
scratch it?
You can scratch the
God.
world, right? And make all the
It's
explosions
Vendetta,
happen
man.
and stuff.
It's Vendetta
Dude,
or
I'm
Fight for New York. Icons.
I mean, yeah, I'm not. Come on. Yeah. I just like it because it has that weird effect
That's
where you
fair.
can. Yeah, you're like scratching the record, and then the world
Yeah.
is changing and shit. And
Oh,
you're-
yeah.
it's like so weird. You know, it's like it's a weird game. They're all great games. They're, like
That's true.
we should be blessed that we got one Def Jam fighting game. The fact that we have like this wild series of them and they're all weird in their own way is
Where's the fourth one?
Is pretty interesting. I don't know.
Should do a doc on.
Maybe that's
Def
our
Jam.
next. That's
Yeah.
our next
Oh,
Game
man.
Club one. It's fucking the Def Jam series. I mean, there's so many of those guys. Like all of the like so many of the Why can't I remember the name of the crew?
Wu-Tang?
Wu-Tang. All the Wu-Tang guys are like huge gamers too. Like,
Yeah, I
loads
mean, they
of
have
them are.
they have a PS1 game.
Yeah, what's it called again? It's got
Oh,
a
yeah, that's what
bizarre
has the
name.
I think it's
custom
just Wu-Tang
controller, right?
Shaolin style. And-
Shaolin
yeah.
Monks, is it?
Yeah.
Shaolin
It
style.
was
Oh,
a
you're right,
reskin
style.
of Thrill Kill, which was like every 90s magazine for a decade just kept talking about Thrill Kill.
Shaolin style. It was called. I knew it was called something else. It was called Wu-Tang Taste the Pain in Europe.
So much better.
My favorite Wu-Tang
fan of
story
Taste
is
the
when the Heaven's Gate cult died, and they all had the big Nike. They all had the same big ugly Nike sneakers on when they died in Heaven's Gate. So in all the photos of all the
Right.
bodies, they're all wearing these ugly ass sneakers. And there's a quote from Wu-Tang talking about that in some interview somewhere. And they're making fun of them for their ugly shoes. They're like, "Oh yeah, all them had all them Smurf joints, didn't they?" And they're all like dying laughing and shit. It's so fucking funny.
Smurf joints.
That's terrible.
Oh, all right. We'll end it there. That's great. Thank you all so much for listening. Thanks to all the folks at Obsidian for making this badass fucking video game. It still stands up all these years later. Please let us do a documentary on it. That'd be very fun. If you have any suggestions on future episodes of this, feel free to stick them. Spam us on Twitter. Stick them in the comments over on Patreon. Wherever it makes you feel good. Hit up podcast@noclip.video. We'll be back next week with a regularly scheduled episode. I mean, hopefully we will actually. Now that I think about it, we're all filming again next week. We'll figure that one out. Maybe, we'll just do. We're gonna get into this new pattern of doing 2 podcasts every 2 weeks, just to really, line them all up. But until then, we'll see you then. Peace out, you dirty ghouls. Bye.